His story begins with Lottie Seibel Seeley, who, like most other women in the small, arid, southeastern Utah town where she lived, loved her family and knew how to shape scarce resources into delicacies. Lottie used her pioneer ingenuity to make the world a better place, and in order to do that, she made spud nuts. Spud nuts were a donut made by adding mashed potatoes to the batter to keep it moist. For a nickel, you could buy one from a commercial bakery up the street. But since resources like nickels were scarce, Lottie perfected her own version of the recipe, and smelling the aroma of the fresh donuts, family members would gather in her small kitchen for a sample. One son, Roland, would thread half a dozen hot donuts along the handle of a long wooden spoon and eat every single one, to the horror of Lottie's neighbors. Lottie made the world a better place with spud nuts, and then she taught her bread-making skills to her daughter Ruth, who made the world a better place with cinnamon rolls. And then Ruth passed her culinary expertise on to her daughter Joyce, who became Grandma Joyce, and that's where today's story starts. Of all the legacies that were passed on through the 5 generations between Lottie and her living descendants, one of the most important has been the legacy of a great recipe, a love for flavor, and a kitchen table where everyone is welcome. Today, Joyce continues Lottie's legacy, sharing Lottie's recipes, Ruth's recipes, and hundreds of others with her own posterity, plus any friends, neighbors, in-laws, or roommates who happen to show up on Sunday evening during dinner hour. Or when they attend a fireside when Joyce is in charge of the light refreshments. Or when they come to celebrate with the new bride and groom in Joyce's own backyard enchanted garden. Today, we'll share just a few ideas for ways you and your family can create memories and foster close family relationships as you create your own table for 50. The secret to a family with strong, solid connections is no secret. And today, we're going to share the recipe that works for us. It's as easy as lemon meringue pie.
So for me, in cooking, it really just kind of started with my dad working late most nights and my mom being busy doing whatever payroll or whatever for the business. My mom would just get busy and I would be hungry and we would want to eat. And so I just started to watch my dad, especially on Sunday dinners, and start to just experimenting and cooking myself. And that's also kind of when I started to realize what certain ingredients actually tasted good, like onions and mushrooms. Because growing up, I always just kind of followed the preferences of my older brothers. And then once I started cooking, I realized, this is the stuff that makes food taste good. It's not bad. So that's kind of what started it. And then I've always been one to like having a lot of spices and a lot of flavor, especially in meat. And so one thing that my dad and I really enjoy doing together is prime rib. We usually try to do it once or twice a year. We'll season it the night before with lots of garlic and fresh herbs and salt and pepper. And so when Grandma Whiting wants us to make that sometimes when we come to town in Utah.
So this is before Eric and I officially started dating, but he had us over after church, a group of friends, and he had made a white chocolate raspberry cheesecake. And I took a bite of it, and I was a little hesitant because all the baked cheesecakes I had were kind of gross. And I took a bite into it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is heavenly. And then I kept trying the food that he made, and it was so good. I'm like, man, this guy can cook. I'm like, if he can care that much about food, he can definitely care about me.
So when I was 14 years old, I had made some artisan bread for some neighbors for a bake sale. And she told me that she would pay me to bring her some of that bread every week. And after a few weeks, we saw a sign for a local community farmers market that was starting up. And so my mom suggested that I try and find a way to sell my bread at the farmers market to make some money over the summer. I started my bakery. And so every Friday, by about 3 p.m., I was usually in the basement baking about 40 loaves of bread and 4 dozen cinnamon rolls and 4 dozen rolls. And then I would wake up Saturday morning to go and sell them at the farmer's market. In order to be able to make that amount of bread out of my one Bosch mixer, my mom would come and help me bake. And so for 3 summers in a row, we would spend hours baking together, usually with a Jane Austen movie running in the background to keep us entertained. But those years were what helped me, because of all those hours baking together. That was the reason my mom and I became best friends. All of my siblings had been older and moved out, and so it was just me and my parents. And so I hogged all of the time with my mom and talked to her and told her about everything in all of my long-winded ways, and she would always just listen. And then when I graduated, went on a mission, and the night I came back, my flight landed about 11:30 at night. And so by the time we got my luggage and had said hello to everybody and packed up and driven home, it was probably close to 2 in the morning. And I walked in the garage door and instantly smelled cinnamon rolls and burst into tears and said, "It smells like cinnamon rolls in here." And I walked in and there was a whole stovetop covered in cinnamon rolls. And so the rest of my family gathered around in the kitchen while my mom mixed up some cream cheese frosting, which is necessary. And we all ate cinnamon rolls at 3 in the morning, and I was home with my family, happy as could be.